So this week we're actually doing what we were supposed to do last week, but because I was sick, I was like, well, there's no point me talking to myself. So we might as well save it, and then you can be here as well. And we will, it's basically performance management continues, so we would have done part of the subject already. And did you watch that one, or did you get up to speed with that content? Yep, no, kind of. Well, let's review it anyway a little bit. So, to get you thinking, can you tell me why is performance management important?
To make sure people do their jobs properly.
Make sure people do their jobs.
So that they have a clear sort of goal, what something, a standard to aim for.
Yep, they have a clear expectation of what's required. Keep going. Okay, so what happens if we've got a clear expectation of what's required?
We have to access to those standards so that they're performing.
Yep, so we can check them against those standards to see if they're performing. Yep, okay, so the process is that we are setting goals and expectations. Then we're monitoring and reviewing performance against those standards and providing feedback. But we can, that whole process is actually important because it does set those expectations, which does in the long run contribute to those feelings of sort of motivation and job satisfaction. There's quite a link there between having clear expectations, having clear feedback, and ongoing certainty, and those critical psychological states of that can lead to job satisfaction, which actually contributes towards employee engagement, retention, reduced turnover, and so long-term payoff for the organisation. So ultimately we're talking about increased productivity for the organisation and decreased costs. Okay. The old argument is, performance management, it takes time, it costs the organisation money in terms of time and effort. Some would say that it's a process that can actually also cause problems and conflict and issues in and of itself, so why do it? But the problem is if we don't manage performance, then what happens? Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Chaos. But we lose that control over that aspect of the organisation, which is something we have the potential to actually enhance and improve and contribute to the overall profitability of the organisation. So we've got to actually do it, but the point is we do it well. Okay, it's where it's not done well that the problems can evolve from. So that's about having a clear process in place. What does P equals M times A times O times D stand for?
Well, forget the A, but it's performance equals management times whatever A is, times opportunity, times direction.
Pretty close. Performance equals motivation.
Motivation, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so we have to be motivated, as first and foremost, times ability. We have to have the ability to complete the task, because we can be as motivated as hell, but if we haven't got the ability, we're still not going to be able to achieve it. Times opportunity, so we have to be given the time and the resources available to undertake the task required. And direction, we need to know what that task actually is. So performance is a factor in quite a number of areas. And so a manager who is looking at managing a situation of poor performance can think about that formula and go, what part of this is not working? Are they motivated? Yes. Okay, that's great, because lack of motivation is hard to fix. Yeah. Ability, we can train them. Opportunity, we can make the time and the resources available. Direction, we can tell them what's required. All of those things we can actually do something about if we've identified one of those as the problem. So, yeah, I guess with that one, it's just being mindful as the line manager of what part of performance is not working. Name 3 different methods for measuring performance.
And the text sort of was the checklist.
Checklists, yep.
Does that have they done this?
Yep.
Yes, no.
Yep. We can use a checklist approach.
Is a grade approach, isn't there, quantifying?
Rating scales. Rating scales are extremely common and different types of rating scales. Can you remember the different types of rating scales we talked about in class? Because they're quite simple ones, you know, that you can use, but you can also develop quite complex ones. So we talked about behaviour observation scales, so observing behaviours that are being performed and, you know, rating on those behaviours, and behaviourally anchored rating scales, which was where you write a descriptor about the type of behaviour that you would expect to see, and then rank somebody against those descriptors. I gave some examples in the handouts in class. If you haven't got those handouts, I have probably got a spare one here.
And then there was also 360 degree.
360 degree feedback was another one, exactly.
Like their managers, their co-workers.
Yep.
Basically.
Those are examples of behaviour observation ones, those ones, and then that's a behaviourally anchored rating scale.
Did you put this one up on
I think I
Google?
did, I mean,
I don't remember.
seeing it?
No.
Okay.
I definitely got given that one last week, but I mean you weren't here, so.
I might have missed it on Moodle. Yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
it's just to show, I guess, that, you know, an organisation can actually, like, the more work you put into developing the rating scales, the more reliable and valid the ratings are actually going to be. I mean, organisations used to use ranking methods for measuring performance, you know, ranking employees from the best to the worst. And those have been, you know, clearly sort of ruled out as not particularly fair methods, because we need to be measuring people against objective criteria, you know? Rather than comparing them against each other, we're comparing them against the expected standards that we've got put in place prior. So, yes. So we can use critical incidents, essays, checklists, self-appraisal, peer review, 360-degree feedback, client reviews, assessment centres. So the more sources of information we have, the more reliable that information is going to be to get an overall picture of that individual's performance. Okay? And that's why we don't want to just rely on the line manager evaluation. That's where it often falls through. Is, well, I don't like my manager anyway, he doesn't like me, so of course he's going to give me a crap evaluation. And I'm not going to get the pay rise. So what's the point? So that doesn't lead to motivation. We see that, we know that, don't we? I mean, you might have been there at some point by the sounds of it.
We have an evaluation at work from a guy who's one above us.
Yeah.
We see him twice a year.
You see him twice a year, he has no idea what you really do. What actually happens in that meeting? Yeah.
We don't get a pay rise.
Yeah, don't get the pay rise. So when it's not done well, sure, it can contribute to dissatisfaction and low morale. But if we actually, you know, take into account those multiple methods, get multiple sources of information, get the employee themselves to do a self-reflection review, because we usually have a really good idea of where our strengths and weaknesses lie in regards to a job, whether or not we're prepared to tell our boss what those are, that's a question, but you have a good idea. And that is one argument for actually not linking performance to rewards. You know, a lot of organisations do link performance to rewards, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But a lot of organisations choose not to, because it is actually because the measurement of performance can be so subjective, and because it can undermine that performance management process. You know, if it's linked to rewards in some way, then it's all about achieving the goals rather than achieving what the overall organisation big picture is. Okay, and it becomes more competitive, and it becomes more. People become more disgruntled with the process because they feel like it wasn't fair or whatever. So this week we're going to look at giving performance feedback. So actually, you know, having some of those difficult conversations, linking performance and reward, and whether or not to do that, and then managing a performance improvements of process. Okay. Questions? Giving performance feedback. Can you think about a time when you have actually had to give feedback and receive feedback?
No, I can't sort of think offhand of any time where I've had to give feedback, but I've certainly received feedback. Like when I was last week, I said when I was at Westland, year before last, when I was at Westland, they have KPIs for stuff, key performance indicators, so they say your objectives for this year are to do this, that. The other thing I think a couple of mine were achieve and get through so many help desk jobs, the network alerting system set up.
Good, yeah. And so they gave you feedback on meeting those?
Yeah. And then that sort of links into the whole performance and reward thing, like I said, for however many of your KPIs you meet, you get so much your bonus at the end of the year.
Okay, cool. So did that feel like a fair process for you?
Yeah, absolutely, because like certain goals were weighted differently. Like I think the network alerting one was weighted quite highly because of course the networks are
Highly
the entire company.
Yeah. And how did they measure your performance on the KPIs?
Well,
They had the data there.
they had the data like with help desk and stuff. They obviously had the help desk tickets and whatnot.
So some jobs are really quite a lot easier to measure in terms of those KPIs because they are quite quantitative, you know, and if you've got good data management information systems within the organisation, then you can actually look that up quite easily and say, right, here's the result. And you know, the challenge is where a job is more qualitative and more based on, you know, not quantitative data, but sort of subjective opinions or experiences, you know, like where, for example, you know, that we ask for feedback from students about tutors. That's, you know, there's a lot of qualitative information that comes out in those sorts of measures. But that's why we need multiple sources of information to validate it. We don't rely on one. What about you? Thanks, Zane. What about you, Ian?
Well, most of our performance indicators are qualitative because you're out doing work.
Yeah.
Though they can do some because a lot of our operational licensing and skills of machinery and stuff like that.
So you have to meet certain
No,
tickets, basically?
but because we've got a 10 grade system for every job, so as you get new licenses, for example, you go up in grades because you can do more stuff and operate more machinery.
Sure. Good.
So technically yes, but yeah.
But then they're obviously ranking on or
What you do for a job as well, which
rating
is hard when
Yeah.
they don't really follow up on what you do for a job.
They may not see.
Well, they don't.
That's where the behaviour observation
Yeah.
system can be quite useful. You know, like how do we rate behaviour if we don't actually see that behaviour happening? So if it is just down to the opinion of the line manager and whoever he happens to have been talking to,
Yeah. Well, it's also based on the skills that you can do because probably where I am is the most varied of all the jobs.
Yeah.
Because we can do anything like we'll start snow plowing, we do fixing potholes, we do complete new roads, everything.
Yeah, right.
Whereas a lot of people would like to do sealing roads, that's all they do all
That's
day,
all they
is
do.
one job, driving a truck backwards.
Yeah. So the variety of tasks that you can do is
It's huge.
increasing.
So
Yeah.
it makes it a bit trickier that way, but in theory, our South Island Ledge come through and last year they linked all of the ranked grades to performance, to increases.
Right.
So
Okay.
it said if you are grade 3, you'll get this,
Yes.
and this is exactly what you need to go grade 4 to go.
So does it feel like if that's a fair system?
That would have been if we got told what it was,
Right, okay.
and our line manager won't tell us.
Right.
About
It makes it really hard to jump through that
He
particular...
doesn't pay rises, that's why.
Yeah, no, okay. So they've got, this is the challenge an organisation might have a performance management process in place, but it's about how well is it implemented. And so we've talked with HR a lot about the fact that HR's role is about making sure the policies and procedures are in place, and then training your line managers so that your line managers, or advising your line managers so that they know what how they're expected to implement those policies and procedures. And I think we talked about errors in performance management a little bit last week. And we are inherently human. We do make errors. We are subjective, and we are influenced by halo effect, Horn's effect, first impressions, recency, just like me effect, all of these perceptual errors that we can make. And so if you've got one person responsible for making ratings, then how do we limit that impact?
By having multiple people give feedback.
Yeah, so we get multiple sources for the information for feedback, but we also train our line managers, because if our line managers know about all those potential errors, and then there's research showing that, okay, yes, that's human, that we're being human if we make those mistakes, but if we train people about those types of mistakes, then we're more likely to reduce the impact of those mistakes being made. I think it's in the textbook, that stuff.
You'll also have to have buy-in from the managers to actually want to do it.
Yeah, and yes.
That's where, we've got 7,000 staff throughout the country, and ours does not.
No,
even
you're the unlucky ones who've got the manager who isn't actually that interested in doing it. So, but who's performance managing your line manager in terms of how well they're implementing the performance management? Because that's part of their job description, their KPIs. So.
It's a whole, yeah.
So have a look at page 209 and 210. You've got all of those sort of potential errors I just talked about briefly. So yeah, it's not up to HR to do all of the performance reviews. It's up to HR to facilitate the line managers to do them effectively. And it's a real challenge, definitely. But you can read through those mistakes. They're sort of very common. So when it comes to, giving constructive feedback, and this is the challenge I think for a lot of managers, is they're a bit scared about actually giving feedback altogether. They're like, actually, I don't want to have to do this. It's hard to have those difficult conversations. You either end up with a manager who's too harsh and is, happy to berate you, or somebody who's too scared to deal with any performance issues whatsoever and just lets things slide because that's much easier, right? So I think a real important skill to develop in the line managers is that ability to have those difficult conversations, however you want to call it, call it dialogue or whatever, but being able to give constructive feedback in a positive kind of way. So there's the acronym in your work on Moodle is the BOOST feedback model. So B is for balance, so your feedback should be balanced, both the positive and the negative. Where they're doing well, where they could improve. Objective, so it needs to be based on behaviours rather than, one particular experience you might have had, like your 4 interruptions during my presentation today after I'd asked for questions to be held at the end were disruptive and you never listen. So we don't, we don't generalise and you base it on one particular experience. Observed. Ideally, a manager will have witnessed the behaviour himself rather than reporting what others have said. Okay, so we need to rely on things that you've actually seen. There is that challenge when it comes to observation that people tend to change their behaviour when they're being observed or that they know they're being observed. However, again, if we just say that's one source of information and we've got multiple other sources of information, then that's quite, we can offset that a little bit. Specific, so we need to use specific examples to illustrate the issue, rather than you're always late for work. I noted that you've been late 3 times this week and you've left early twice. So give specifics and details, and that's where a line manager's keeping file notes where they think something is becoming an issue, keeping notes around what's going on. So you can pull out specific examples rather than having to make generalisations. And then timely. We don't wait until the very end of the year to give our feedback. We have to give that feedback in an ongoing kind of a way, as soon as practical after we've seen something that isn't quite up to scratch. And that's accounts for positive and negative. And when it comes to giving that feedback, it's okay to give positive feedback in public, but we would generally save negative feedback for private. There's no point embarrassing somebody in front of their colleagues. But pray, hey?
Because it's more likely to demotivate.
Yeah, that'll demotivate people and create a negative culture. But praising people in front of their colleagues, is there any harm in that?
Sometimes. So it's like other people sort of get jealous and say, oh,
He always gets positive praise. Okay, so long as we're sort of relatively, even and consistent about how we making sure that it goes around everyone at some point. It can boost morale if we can see that people are actually being recognised for their positive performance. The one problem with that general rule is that people might feel like negative performance isn't being dealt with because it never gets dealt with in public. It only gets dealt with in private, and so they ends up being this sort of bias saying that the organisation doesn't deal with negative performance. And a lot of employment engagement surveys that organisations will do, the issues that come up as predominantly problematic for any organisation are communication. There's usually a perception of poor communication from the organisation to employees, and performance management. There's often a perception that poor performance isn't being managed. And that's because we don't see it being managed. Okay? Because it is a time-consuming process that often happens in a long, drawn-out kind of a process, and it often happens behind closed doors. Do you know of any other tools for giving constructive feedback? Any of you? Tips? Your book says tell and sell, tell and listen, problem solving. It's another sort of framework, 3 basic approaches. Yeah. Do you think this one would work? If you're a manager?
I think that's very comprehensive.
It's very comprehensive, yeah. I mean, it's not a pleasant situation to be in if you are the line manager having to give negative feedback. People might react in lots of ways. How can people react?
Aggressively.
Aggressive, emotional, tears.
Yeah, not me, wasn't me.
Oh, denial. Good, yeah. Claim ignorance, fear, yeah, worried about their jobs.
Oh, am I going to be fired?
Am I going to be fired? Yeah. And fear can make people do crazy things. So, so having a plan, okay, about what sort of feedback you can give, how you're going to give that feedback, the specific examples of times that you've observed these behaviours, that's all really rather important for that process. Have a look at this little video I've got for you.
Seen the news today about how there was that shooting at YouTube headquarters in America.
I haven't seen the news today. I haven't seen it.
Oh, then apparently the shooter shot themselves. I don't know if there are any other fatalities, injuries. And Mum always reminds me when stuff like this happens that how back when I was at high school I wanted to go on an exchange trip to America. And if I knew then what I know now, no fucking chance.
hyperlink work. It's still not working. Huh. Alright, I might just be able to pull the file straight out. Oh, much yourselves.
See what the problem is, yeah.
You see what the problem is?
Yeah. It's not working.
Have you tried turning it off?
Thanks.
Software ain't no working. I feel what the name of the comment is that had that, the little software ain't no working. I'm do it and dog it, that was it. And then and tried to turn on that's off, was it the office or the
IT.
IT. Yeah. Have you seen Do It and Dog It? It's like the dog on a help desk thing. You see this one but this guy rings up, they're like, hey, my computer isn't shut up and reboot. Oh, hey, it's for shut up and hang up. My average call time is improved.
Maybe I'll try Googling it and see if it comes up. I might have been that the link didn't work because it might have gone, but I'm sure I checked it last week.
Freeman 21.
What?
There was one there that was almost that same time, I think.
Keeps on coming up with that one, which is not the right one. Right, well, we'll sorry.
That's right. You don't know who it was from.
No.
Oh, there goes Cass. Oh, add
is
the
it?
name on there. Down the bottom left.
Star and Casey,
Yeah, I'll put that in YouTube, we'll find
the
it.
performance appraisal.
Yeah. Starring Casey.
Oh, here it is, thank you.
There you go.
Yay. Look at it.
I can fix it, see.
Oh, yeah, come in. Oh, hi, Casey. You ready for your...
Okay, now I have to change my display settings because my display is not very. Every time, make sure to duplicate. This time, maybe.
There you go.
Alright, so you guys need to pay attention and do what is not so good about this scenario.
performance appraisal. So, yearly performance appraisal. Let's get this out of the way. Okay. HR, we'll give that a tick. Okay, first of all, I want you just to remember this is a two-way process. Okay, so,
Sure. I'm feeling really nervous about this. My pay and promotion opportunities are tied up in this meeting and she has all of the power.
have you got a job description by any chance, Casey?
I do, but it's quite out of date. I don't know that it's really relevant now.
Oh, as long as you've got one, that's fine, that's great. So this is looking back at your past performance over the year, but look, I can't really remember the whole year. I can remember the last couple of months, so we'll just sort of look at that. So according to my records, just what I've got here, I'm seeing you around, you've done this and this really well, that's good, that's great, happy with that. But unfortunately we're not so happy about that and that. So,
I wonder why she's waited till now to tell me that I've underperformed. I feel demoralised by the fact that she's pointing it out now. I know I'm not that good at Excel spreadsheets. I wonder if there's some training I could go on.
oh, right, so perhaps you could send an email through to that girl in HR. She deals with all that sort of stuff, and then I can tick off those HR boxes and say I've done my bit. Is there anything else, Casey?
Will this affect my pay?
Look, Casey, there's no need to get emotional about these things, you know. what's happening with the pay? Let me have a look.
Well, that's a real incentive, isn't it?
Yeah, well look, your job, you've been doing a good job, so we'll be giving you the cost of living index just like everybody else, the same all over the company.
Real incentive.
Mm.
There is something else. I'd like to know more about how much of actually fits into the organisational goals and future plans.
All right, well look, don't you worry about that because it's my job as a manager to be on top of all these sorts of things. Although I'm actually not quite sure what the company direction is myself.
In my future prospects here at Apple.
Look, how about you send me an email? I'm too busy to bother with all that warm and fuzzy stuff. I can send it through to HR and then it becomes their problem.
I'm moving to a company that ties its performance management process with company goals and objectives in a collaborating process, tied up with learning and development and succession planning.
Oh, that went really well, didn't it, Katie? Thank you. See you next year.
Thanks.
Okay, there we go. Short and sweet, that
Better
was
than
all,
mine.
wasn't it? Yeah, your thoughts?
It just seemed awkward. So with how often script.
Yeah, so all the sketch they've scripted out, obviously. I don't think they could really show you a real one. They might, but-
It didn't seem to be.
Is that pretty much what happens?
It's better than my performance for
All
anyway.
right, so 3 minutes is something to aim for, right? So what was really, was 2 or 3 things you picked out of there that were wrong based on what we talked about?
There just didn't really seem to be a lack of, there was a lack of sort of preparation, they seemed.
Yep.
So both of them seemed somewhat disorganised, and there wasn't really any ongoing feedback, because you heard her say,
Yeah.
oh, why am I only finding out about these things right now? And the manager didn't know the company's direction either, just didn't really seem to care.
Because last week we talked about the fact that performance management starts at the top, identifying the mission and values and goals of the organisation, and that they filter down into the departmental level, and that filters down into the individual performance targets level. So you should always be able to show the connection back up to the overall organisation plan, really. Did you spot anything else, Ian?
Oh, there was no examples of what or when she'd done things good or bad.
Specific, yep,
Nothing at all,
examples.
yeah. And even when she first walked in, the manager wasn't wanting to do it by body language,
Yeah,
just there, so,
yeah. Body
Right,
language,
something's going
answering
well.
a phone call in the middle of it.
yeah.
Not great. And that whole treating it as a tick box exercise. And I know, I was just talking about this before with Ariana for induction. These processes that HR put in place can be often seen as a tick box exercise. But if we can train managers to understand why they're so important and why they actually can contribute to productivity and performance, then that's the important part. And say, actually, it's a tick box exercise because it's important. It's important that you do all of these things and that we actually, have a procedure there in place to manage that. So yes, focus on make sure we cover the good and the bad, that we, give them an opportunity to speak and explain, and that you're sort of responsive to that information as well, I guess. Don't deny that. And they did talk in that little video clip about the fact that she's worried because her pay is linked to her performance. And it is really quite common that we link, pay to performance. It is a common use for it, depending on the industry that you work in. So, I'll just have a look. There's something, yeah. On page 191, that little diagram about performance management being a continuous process. Yeah, so that review process should feedback for us in terms of what training and development might be needed, but also can obviously give us basis for making a decision about whether or not a bonus or a reward is, how much you might get of that, whether you get all of it or none of it, or whether your pay goes up the scale on the scale that you're using. So components of reward, when you look at it, there is a lot that goes into an overall employee's total reward package. There is the sort of the financial side of it. There's that base pay. So if you're getting a salary or a wage just for being there, essentially, time-based, you've got that base pay. Variable pay is where that performance pay comes in, essentially. So variable pay is anything that might change depending on certain circumstances or outcomes. So some jobs are solely based on variable pay. I've worked in sales jobs where you only get paid if, you know, commission-based only, so you only get paid if you sell something.
Or do that at those places like Noel Lehman, a guy who used to work there, so they get one's a 1 or 2% commission for any sales that they're responsible.
Yeah, so they would get a base pay, so that they're at least getting the minimum wage, and then they're getting a variable pay based on commission on top of whatever they sell on top of that. What happens, it can create a bit of a competitive sort of environment where it's like, hey, that's my customer, no, that's my customer, and you're trying to get in there first, but at least there's the incentive to sell the product, so it gives them that motivation to sort of try and know their stuff and actually, you know, be customer focused. So variable pay can take lots of different, you know, it can be that commission based, or it can be, okay, you've got an overall, there's $10,000 up for grabs at the end of the year, depending on how well you meet particular key performance indicators, and you get a proportion of that, or all of it, or none of it. So yeah, so having that framework in place for ranking and rating somebody is really important if you're going to go down that line, because you've got to be able to show it's objective, it's transparent process, and it's done equitably. When we've talked about motivation in the past, we've talked about equity theory and expectancy theory. Remember those, are there? Organisations and management. Equity theory, the perceptions of equity are really important in terms of motivation.
Yeah, I think that also you gave one example was the equity theory where so two people are doing the same work and yet one's getting
paid more,
the other, so the one's getting paid. This is like,
yeah,
he's doing the same work.
It's Bob and Jim at the fish processing plant, and Bob's getting paid.
So
And Bob's been there for 10 years, and he's paid a certain rate. Jim comes in and he's getting paid, finds out that he's getting paid more than, you know, Jim's getting paid more than Bob. So Bob, of course, has that situation where he feels like the situation is unequitable. He's been there longer, he should get paid more. Whereas Jim might have come in with higher qualifications, or the market rates might have changed, in which case the organisation should adjust Bob's pay anyway. But you've created a situation where perception is an issue. And expectancy theory also comes into that, so theory of motivation that says, Vroom in the Ago's expectancy theory that says that, you know, we have this expectation that performance will lead to an outcome, and the outcome will lead to a reward, and that we value that reward, basically. Okay, so you actually have to set up clear expectations around how your performance pay is connected to your performance. Share ownership could be another option for financial rewards, you know, as shares in the company, so as the company performs better, and that can be something that's used, you know, in a lot of organisations, and also benefits. You might get more allowances and things. Hey?
We get free health insurance and life
Free
insurance.
health insurance, wow, that's pretty good. Health insurance, your KiwiSaver, your clothing allowances, any sort of vehicle allowance, or those sorts of factors come into it. They can be worth quite a lot financially. You know, if you get a company car that you're allowed to drive in your own time as well, that's worth a lot. So that goes into your financial rewards, and that makes up your total remuneration. But then you've also got to add in those non-financial rewards to give your total reward for working at the organisation. So the non-financial rewards are a bit more intangible. You know, recognition, opportunities, professional development, training, quality of working life, you know, those sorts of factors. go into making up that overall expectations and outcomes for somebody in that job. So, if you think about it, you get a lot more out of the workplace than just the pay packet. Opportunities for social engagement and community spirit and whatever, networking, whatever you want, whatever's important, you can throw that in there. So that diagram actually comes from this textbook that you've got, but it's in this chapter on remuneration, so it's page 419, so it's a bit further on. Any questions? So I think I've possibly talked about some of this already. Performance pay usually is only part of your overall remuneration. It's intended to incentivise a reward. It is widely criticised. You talk to Ian Hooker, you get Ian Hooker in this room talking about performance pay and performance management in general, and he will probably give you quite a different perspective. Okay, because even within the literature and the academics, there's just lots of discussion and disagreement. And I'll put up another article. There's a couple of articles for you to read for this week, but there's a good one. Performance appraisals weighed and found wanting in the balance. Fred Nichols, I'll put that one up. There's a lot of criticism of the process because if it's not done well, it can be quite expensive and demotivating.
Yeah.
So why do it? Yeah. But the point is, and in terms of performance pay, it can create that competitiveness, undermine the teamwork. It can encourage people to focus on those short-term goals. Sure, I've ticked off all my KPIs, I'll get my bonus, that's all that's important. Is it all that's important? Yeah. When you go back to goal setting theory, that's one of the problems with goal setting, is that if you set goals, people will only work to achieve those goals and no more. Why would you? So actually we want people to go above and beyond those goals. So how do we actually get that, sort of motivation started? And then we start to talk about leadership. And some people don't believe that performance pay actually motivates people.
It doesn't. In my experience, it doesn't.
In your experience, it doesn't. In your experience?
I spent 10 years on commission.
Yeah.
Made no difference.
A little different to me, like when I was at Western with the KPIs, it wasn't sort of huge, it was just something I was doing day to day. Really.
Yeah.
Some of it is about how much can you control what's going on, can you control, and that's where it goes back to that performance management times opportunity times ability and so forth. If you can't actually control the outcomes, then how, then it doesn't actually make much difference, what you do, what the outcome is. So it doesn't, so you sort of have to resign yourself to just accepting whatever you get given, right? Rather than actually working harder to try and achieve those outcomes. And it can create game playing. Okay, so here, Polytech, for example, you get, not that we do, but you could, if you linked your performance pay to your performance review, and your performance review was based on the percentage of the students who passed, because that's a government target, right? And percentage of students who complete qualifications, and percentage of students who get A's, or percentage of the student feedback rating. You have to get a certain level of student feedback in order to get this performance pay. This is all fictional. But what happens if you do that?
More likely to sort of, I'll give them an A here.
Why not just give you all A's? Other than somebody's moderating those results. But,
you can lead them to get higher grades.
We can lead you to get higher grades. You've got, you can manipulate data. Okay, once you start setting goals and linking pay to reward performance of those goals, people start to play games with the data and manipulating the data. Okay, you guys give me, make sure you give us a 5 on the tutor evaluations. I'll make sure you get, chocolate fish at the end of each class. Whatever.
Last year.
I never gave you the chocolate fish last year. They were virtual chocolate fish.
I'll still promise chocolate. I can't eat pixels.
Okay, sorry, well,
You've got to print it out.
But you see that problem, like, we don't want people to just aim for the goal and no more. We don't want people to manipulate the data to achieve the goal. We actually want people to be inherently motivated to work in the organisation's best interests. So that's a different factor. So then we're looking at motivational issues. So performance pay, even though it's widely criticised, it is still widely used because there's this sort of inherent belief that it encourages people to engage in the desired behaviours, and we go back to Skinner's reinforcement theory and things like that, and good behaviour gets a reward, so we go back to those sort of behavioural principles of reinforcement for motivation. And I don't have the answer to this dilemma. Some organisations, some organisation cultures, some environments, it will work well. Some other organisations, it won't work well. You need to know what type of, what your organisation, how it's going to work in your organisation. Can you measure these things well? Do the individuals involved have a good, do they know how they can change their behaviours to meet those outcomes or not?
I
Have they
actually
got control?
taken off commission once I taught the boss out of it.
Yeah.
I said, do you want people, because otherwise all I'm going to do, get sales through the door. Then what about all the follow-up stuff?
Yeah.
I get paid for follow-up.
No.
If you want me to do sales, then it's sales, but
They want the rest of it. Then.
it's got taken off commission.
Yeah. The other problem with it, I was just thinking, there's quite a bit of research on pay. Like, once you reach a certain level of pay, you're not actually that much more motivated to go beyond that. So long as you, I think it was around something like 50,000 or something. There was some research done. It's in a book called Deciding to Decide, and it's basically deciding to decide. Maybe.
It's on baselines anyway, isn't it? Stage 3 of baselines.
Yeah, it goes basically that to me is a theory of motivation as well. Once basic physiological needs and safety and such needs are met, that's not pay doesn't motivate anymore. So long as your basic sort of, you've got your mortgage paid off and you're comfortable, you can go on a family holiday once a year if you want to, whatever. Once you get to that level, pay beyond that doesn't actually make you any happier. Okay. There's been quite a bit of research around that. You might think you want pay beyond that, but it's not actually going to make you any happier. And so it's about looking at the long-term payoff of that. So actually money isn't necessarily motivating. Well, that might. Okay. Performance review problems. Some of the things we've talked about already, like those perceptual errors, lack of management, understanding, commitment, training, knowledge about the process. That's why all first-line managers should come and do an HR paper. This class should be full of first-line managers. It takes too much time. Yes, it does. Especially if you've got a flat organisational structure, so you've got one manager managing like 15, 20, 30 staff, that's going to be really time-consuming. If you've got a taller structure, then you might only be managing 5 people. Not so bad. You can probably slot that in.
Yeah.
And have a 1 hour meeting with each of those people once a year. But we want to do it more than that, don't we? Because we want ongoing monitoring and feedback. We don't just want the end of the year feedback. The idea that my job can't be measured. We've talked a little bit about the issues of quantitative versus qualitative measurement of jobs, and some are harder to measure than others, but we can always come up with a framework for what you think you've done well, what hasn't gone so well, or looking at those critical incidents of where things have been really good or where things have gone completely pear-shaped. People focus on personality more than performance. You're lazy. That's why you're late all the time, Going back to things like things that are inherent to personality or attributes of the person rather than focusing on behaviour. priorities change, goals might become out of date, and that's where the process actually has to be flexible. Yes, we set goals at the start of the year. Now they're redundant. We're not going to measure you against redundant goals. We're going to say, well, those were probably important at that point. Now they've changed. These are the goals that we think are necessary now. Let's update them and carry on towards it. And goals are imposed. Goals probably need to be negotiated, discussed, not, set down and laid out. You must achieve this. It's a process of engagement and discussion. Questions? Performance improvement and managing poor performance. We can talk for a whole another hour on that. Essentially, where you are going to try and manage poor performance in a more formal process, then we need to ensure that we are acting in accordance with the obligations for good faith under the Employment Relations Act. So that means that we have to have a good reason, a substantive justification for the action that we're taking, but we also have to follow a fair process. We have to have procedural fairness in that process. That usually involves advising the employee what the expectation is, giving them time and training to improve, and advising them of the consequences if they don't. Okay, so maybe we've identified in this year's performance review, that you're consistently late for work. The expectation is that you are on time for work. We'll give you, 2 weeks to improve your performance on that. I don't know that training would be particularly relevant in this particular area, but there we go. The consequence if you don't improve your, being on time is that we will, you may be subject to further disciplinary action or dismissal. Okay, so it's reasonably straightforward. It's amazing how hard organisations find this. Every day we see an article in the news. I think there was one just yesterday. A woman threw a cup of boiling coffee at her colleague and she got awarded $15,000.
The one who threw the coffee?
Yes.
Stress. Was that what you would put it down to? The
employer had substantive justification for dismissing her but didn't follow a fair process. So she actually got awarded $30,000 but they halved it because of her contribution to the scenario. Okay? But that's how crazy this is, and this is the legislation. So the resources are out there. There really is no excuse for organisations for getting this wrong. There is a performance improvement plan process, which I think I've given you a copy of. And this is where we're sort of looking at, they draft a performance improvement plan and invite the employee to the meeting to discuss. There's a performance improvement plan template. That's what it could look like. That's not rocket science. This is the performance issue, this is the expectation, this is the support we're giving, this is when we're going to check, and this is how we're going to review it. Okay? So, what is the standard? Meet with the employee to discuss the performance improvement plan. Make sure you advise them they can bring a support person if they want to. Are you going to implement the performance improvement plan? No or yes. Okay, so you still, even at that meeting, you still have the opportunity to go, actually, they've given me a reasonable explanation. I'm going to drop it at this stage. Okay, or yes, we're going to carry on and we're going to we're going to actually set this, we're going to hold regular meetings, we're going to review the performance. Has their performance improved? Yes. Okay, we carry on with our normal management and feedback process. No, are we going to give a written warning? There are decision points here, you can actually decide yes or you can decide no. Are you going to give a written warning? No. Just update your performance improvement plan and keep going with it. And then keep cycling around that little loop. Or yes, we're now going to give a written warning. Have they had a final warning already? No. Okay, is it appropriate to give a final warning? No, probably not. We issue a warning and then we go back to the performance improvement plan process. Then we go around that cycle again. If they've had a final warning, we still go back to updating the performance improvement plan and go around the cycle again. Once they've had the final warning, is it appropriate to dismiss? Yes or no. We still have a choice there. We don't necessarily have to go straight to yes and go to dismissal. We can still go back to update that performance improvement plan and give them another chance.
What would you consider a standard time frame for improvement?
It depends on the action and the behaviour that you're expecting to see improvement on. Is it complex or is it simple? Is it showing up for work on time? You could say that in a week or 2 weeks we expect to see this particular improvement.
Yeah.
If it requires mastering a new skill that they've been given training on, or mastering something that you've had to give them some additional support for, then maybe a month. So the process can take a long time, and that's why people might get the idea that performance isn't being managed. When actually it is being managed, it's just time consuming. And you have to give them a reasonable opportunity. A reasonable opportunity, that means, it depends how often that behaviour is expected to be displayed anyway. If it's a irregular behaviour, like you're presenting to management team or something and you only do that once every 2 months anyway, then you can't, you can't say you have to improve that within 2 weeks. They have to be given a reasonable. The Employment Relations Authority will always come back to what is a reasonable, what could a reasonable employee do, in that scenario. They change it from what would a reasonable employee do to what could a reasonable employee do.
That's a significant change, actually.
Subtle, isn't it? That's significant.
No, that's quite big.
Yes.
Because it's putting it all back onto them.
Yes.
Not what would you do, what
could you do? It means it's about opening up the possibilities. Like we could dismiss or we could go back and carry on managing performance. Anyway, but the MB website is a fund of information. They've got a free 0800 number that you can call. Why does it keep on going back to that? It's like it's obsessed with that video, even when I thought I'd closed that video. MB, it's destroyed all my hyperlinks. Okay, we're going to run out of time anyway, but you can go and have a look at MB. Oh, it's actually called the Employment MZ website. Resolving problems. Good faith, fair process. What a fair process involves. If it's a serious, we're just talking here about performance improvement, where there is a serious breach, a serious conduct issue, then, or breach of policy or procedure, then we also have, you can go to an investigation process and a disciplinary process. So there's information on there about the investigation process and about the disciplinary process. But we were just focusing today on performance improvement, because that's what often lets managers down, is they don't know how to deal with the poor performance. Okay, well this gives you a plan, a template to follow, a way of working through it to make sure that you're not in breach of those requirements. Yeah? If you start stealing from the workplace or smoking pot or whatever, that's a different issue. Okay?
Not performance related.
Not performance, it's a disciplinary process.
Smoke weeds are definitely very performing, understand.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just, I suppose, good to keep in mind that there are, there's two aspects to that. Yeah. And you can, look at that performance improvement plan process. As a first. Calls for imposed, there are actually 2 for this week, and they're 1% each.
When will they be on? Sweet.
We'll get on to that first. And then see if you can see if there's an opportunity for you to give some feedback using the booster model. I don't know if partners or wives or parents might be receptive. Practice, or colleagues, whatever. Wanting to give some feedback to a colleague, have a go with the booster model.
I gave some short feedback to a colleague a while ago.
Okay, how did that work out?
It was like 2 words.
Okay, I'm not going to ask. Any questions?
Useful that it's like you suck or more colourful words to that effect.
It's same number, yeah.